Hello, everyone. Hope you're doing well and hope you had a good time switching to summertime. We switched to summertime this weekend here in Europe, and I think in the United States it's on a different moment. I think last week, and so it's a little bit stupid system, but I hope you managed to overcome that hour difference. So for the live stream now, practicing session again here at the Frenzel pianoforte, and we are going to do some Beethoven today, all in the framework of the Beethoven project. That's a project that hopefully will allow me, that sounds awful, to allow me to record 60 works of Beethoven. Later this year we start with that, with 22 CDs. It's actually an incredible project. I'm so happy that we decided to do that, and in the course of the coming months, I will be sharing a lot of practicing sessions with you in which we dive into music that I already play by Beethoven, just share some thoughts, some decisions that we have to make, or just practice pieces from scratch, because that will happen since I haven't played already all those 60 works, which is a journey of discovery for me as well. So let's finish this chord. So maybe in major because the sun is shining today. So yeah, hello theoretically musical. Jonathan is here. Sina, great to have you. Photographer from Gothenburg. Kostas Papazafaropoulos is back in Greece. He was here last week attending the live stream. I had a wonderful time together. Nice haircut, he writes. Yeah, it was necessary because I hated my hair. It was so long. And yeah, the girls couldn't understand my obsession by going to have a haircut. But anyway, I'm happy now. My Aunt Rita is here. Good evening. Yeah, good evening to you. Hopefully you like my haircut as well, because that's more important than what Kostas thinks about it. No offense, Kostas. Antoine is here. The Fritz is still waiting for you to be tuned. Actually, Joris had we had two wonderful sessions last week, and I'm not sharing the sound of the Fritz. Actually, it's over here. I'm looking at it right now. But he did some great work in the treble, and actually it's good that the instrument is here because we have now two pairs of ears, which is really interesting. It's unbelievable what you can do by just touching the hammerheads, changing the ladder, or just actually touching the ladder. It changes the sound completely. But what he did during last session was really amazing. I wish I had made a recording of that. That piano had suddenly such a brilliant treble, like little bells that were ringing. It was unbelievable. But there's still work to do, and making the point agreement with him, which I think is normal to only release some sounds of the Fritz when it's really ready to be shared with you, but that will come. Miriam is here. Tom is here. Looks like I got the time right. Well, Tom, if you cannot get the time right, even building a pendulum right now, who is able to do that if it's not you? Okay. Guys, we're going to dive into the Opus 10 number. Opus 10, I always say Opus 10, it's Opus 2 number 3, but my mind is still so close to the Opus 10, which I did on the clavichord. Opus 2 number 3, C major, that's this one. And as always, for those of you who are new or watching the live stream later and are new to the channel, on this channel here, we start from the idea that the metronome indications that are given by Beethoven or Czerny or someone else like Moscheles, but you have actually dozens of other authors who give wonderful metronome numbers in the 19th century that you can look into, even as far as Kullak and von Bülow, and all the editions that were made under von Bülow's guidance, they are actually quite okay. They are, of course, annotated and prepared, so to say, for the later piano than the one that Beethoven or even Czerny knew, but still their metronome numbers are nothing more than tempo indications. And so how cool is it that we still have the decisions from that generation of musicians the tempi that I played. And then the great thing is that if you look into those metronome numbers from several authors, and the main authors for Beethoven are Czerny and Moscheles, they were very close to the master, they knew him, and also they made it very clear that they wanted to safeguard the tradition a bit. So that's an important statement, not saying that what they wrote down or they give as a metronome indication, which is basically their tempi, the way they played that music in, is 100% certain that it was Beethoven's way of playing. Certainly there will be nuances and differences, like Moscheles wrote in the Schindler translation. So the biography by Schindler translated into English, Moscheles actually annotated that. It's really cool to read. That he says, well, yeah, Czerny's metronome numbers and mine, if you compare those, there are minor differences that are related to humans. We are all breathing in a different way and our hearts are beating in a different way. But overall, those metronome numbers, their tempo indications are very close to each other. And for instance, so if you're really new to the theory of double beat, if you have 80, which is the tempo of this the particular piece, there's not so much discussion about that. So Czerny has 80 and 84. For the minim, Moscheles has a little bit slower. I think he gave his value for the quarter note. Not really sure. Can look it up, but it's not so important. I think he is around 152 for the quarter note. So basically, if you start from 80, which Czerny gives for the minim, oh, was hitting the microphone stand. What a confrontation! A 19th century metronome hitting a microphone. If you think about this idea, that it would be possible in Beethoven's time, we would have had a recording of Beethoven. But anyway, so you have 1, 2, 3, 4, which are the ticks of the metronome, which were called the beats in German, die Schläge. But Schlag in singular was actually taking 2 for 1. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, which means that for the minim, you actually play according to our way of reading the metronome number in 40. If you practice this piece with the metronome, it's easy to play, of course, 80 for the crotchet. And the great thing is that if you do that and you apply that to this music, there comes a connection to the music of earlier times with Bach. We have, for instance, from Czerny, a lot of metronomization from Bach's music, and it's remarkable how close that is to, for instance, Quantz. Also Quantz, of course. You look into onto his metronome, not metronome numbers, his kind of a weird heartbeat system in double beat. But that's for another topic. Zacharias is here and just welcoming people in the chat if you will watch this later, and then we'll start. And also at the end of this live stream, I will dive into your chat. If you have burning questions, Anya is moderating that. I see Andre also here. He says, I love the piece as you played it on the channel. Have I played the C major already on my channel? Let me know. I forgot totally about it. And probably on the clavichord, but this is a really difficult piece on the clavichord. So maybe we have made 194 recordings now, so I forgot. So at the end of the live stream, I will dive into the chat as well. If you don't have time to attend the whole session, try to finish that at around 1 hour. Then Anya will come down, hopefully, with your question, and I will answer, so you can watch the replay, so to say, and I'm happy enough to share my thoughts on that. I gave this live stream a little bit the title of Finding the con brio in this work, and that's actually not an April joke. For me, this was one of those pieces that I played a little bit faster all the way. I mean, since I am dealing with double beat, which is basically since my time in conservatory in Amsterdam, made a story on that on my channel, but I will actually make some videos because people ask me where really came the idea to apply for the metronome numbers double beat, and it was not Jacques van Nootmesser, my teacher, who pointed me in that direction. He was rather conservative on that field. He was a big double beat player, so to say, but he didn't want his organ students, who were also piano students, to be infected with this idea too soon, because, you know, that could give some problems when you are studying in one of the most renowned conservatories in the world, and it did in my case. But anyway, I managed to succeed and to get my degree, of course, not by playing in double beat, but anyway. I will make some videos on that where it really started. But this piece, when I played it, I've played it typically a little bit faster, around 96, I think. If you take single beat as a starting point, 96 for the quartet. So coming back to 80, while preparing this Beethoven project for some years now, also releasing a lot of videos on tempo research. So by that, by definition, putting the spotlights a little bit more on what I was doing with my tempi, because you can imagine if people come in onto the channel and say, I don't believe that at all, that they are going to watch with a loop, so to say, what I'm doing. So I made the promise to myself to stick as close to those metronome numbers as possible, which, by the way, is in your daily life as a musician, it's something, well, these metronome numbers, they give a guidance. I would say don't depart from them too soon with saying, well, I play about in the metronome numbers, because going a little bit faster can even take you to another world. So sticking to those numbers as you'll read them, as you'll find them, is a good exercise, because sometimes it takes just a while to quote unquote discover the beauty that's hidden behind those tempi indications, because that it is. The tempo gives a completely new dress to a piece. Changing the tempo is changing everything. That's actually should be a mantra for all of us. So, but in this case, I was actually triggered by the metronome number by Czerny, because it felt for me to be a little bit slow. And what happens in this case, as in many cases with 16th runs and things like that, you start by taking the tempo from the metronome or from a metronome app, and you start playing. But you don't recognize, and it's on every level of musicians, and you have this on every level. I mean, highly professional to even beginners and amateurs, that if you have, what's an amateur, by the way, but you know what I mean, different moments in your life as a musician, so to say, that even I recognized too late or really late that I was speeding up in the midst of the piece. So there was kind of thing that made me think from, whoa, this is slow. Because if you're used to playing faster, coming back is really difficult. So I decided to practice this piece a little bit with a metronome, which I sometimes do, and it's a good exercise. It makes you not playing more musical, but sometimes, yeah, it's a good exercise to check where you are making those accelerations and things like that. And not saying that in a piece like this, you can, by definition, not change your tempo, but I don't think too much. And after a while, I came to a new understanding, which has not settled yet, but I'm happy to share what I think is in this piece right now. So, the con brio, that's the point. I felt it was missing somewhere when I just returned to 80 for the whole piece. But then, after a while, and I'm looking forward to your reaction when we just try out some things, that when you have the 16th runs here, and you articulate those 16th notes in the way Czerny describes as his brillantes Spiel, so the brilliant way of playing, which means basically to articulate, that it opens a new way of listening again. And the last thing before we start is the question that we should answer for all of us individual. What actually do we expect when we read something like Allegro con brio? What's for us con brio, and what was for them con brio, and what really meant con brio? If you look it up, you will find the explanation like in German lebendig, as so lively. We perhaps make more the connotation to a really brilliant in the sense of virtuosic. Maybe I don't think that is a true translation or true explanation of what it was back then. But anyway, con brio meant a little bit lively, and of course had a kind of virtuosic touch. So we're just going to play, and we see how big of a shock this piece is to you. And then we'll come back to it and try to break it down. Let's just play the A section. If we still have time, we can move throughout the whole first movement. If not, it's for next week. and we catch up where we left next week, because this is a really major piece, like the sonatas, all the sonatas are. So 80 is this on my metronome app. By the way, I checked my metronome with the old one, and the old one, I explained to you that it's not perfectly horizontal, but the speed is amazingly accurate. You will see that in the Czerny Etude series that's coming up in a few weeks. I'll make I'll mix those two. This is actually incredible, accurate. I'm playing from the Czerny Simrock score, and if I have a few, they are so hard to find. If you find one, please send it to me, even secondhand. Major libraries, they don't have it. It's unbelievable. But, well, it's difficult to find. Okay, let's play. Okay, just let me check the tempo now, because that's a good exercise for me now. I sped up a little bit. 88 the last. No. Okay, it's still okay. 82, 83, that's okay. So, like the ending of the A section here, so the exposition, and what I believe in those days, this must have been sounded like something astonishing, like they just have had Clementi, who had these octave runs and things like that, now in two hands, chromatically going down, which is fortissimo sound. I think that made an impression on its own. Of course, we hear this piece not in double as fast, I think. Performances like Andras Schiff, I've checked, are at half note 66 really fast, but of course that's still far from the half note 80 or 84 that Jenny describes in single beat. But still, in those days, I think this was kind of impressive. I hope so. And I hope you are not too much shocked. Let me just check the chat here. Okay, I see Boudewijn here in the chat. Nieuwe ontdekking, a new discovery. That's great, because that's all what this channel is about. Rediscover music from Bach to Beethoven. By the way, I hope you like my new banner. I don't know if you have seen that, so if you could just let me know in the chat, or Anya, would be great. We're still fine-tuning that, but the word metanoia, that's something that I say in between. Metanoia means change, based on a new experience or new facts, new things. Can have a theological meaning, it can have a philosophical meaning, but that's actually a word that I heard used by Lorenz Gradient for the first time in an interview a year or so ago. And I thought, well, that really describes what we are doing. And so having just one word big in the banner, which is not really related directly to music, but still very much to what we are doing, I thought it was cool. Just would love to have your feedback on that. So yeah, so staying 80 is not so easy, for instance, in runs like this. Typically, it's very easy to accelerate. Journey adds all these slurs. Actually, the jump you have to make then becomes really good possible. It turns out that Beethoven didn't write all that music to be unplayable after all, which is a great thing once you know that. He didn't, yeah, of course, he composed music that was playable. Okay, what is so great at this music, and it's so difficult about this sonata, is you have so much changes in texture. You start with... So, in a kind of surprising way, you open the stage, so to say, with a kind of question mark. Then you start to tell a story. But the piece is opened like if there was already something before, which is of course not the case. So you feel very much from the beginning drawn into the content, so to say, of this music. And then suddenly you have... And then here, second theme. So there's light and darkness. There is shades are and you know, big contrasts are everywhere here in this piece, and that makes it so hard as a player to combine this to a unity. And the unity that you need to the tool to make this sound as a unity is of course your tempo. Whatever tempo you take, there should be a kind of control in what you're doing. And that's difficult. For instance, also here in this place, That's also very dangerous to just speed up a little bit. But once you do that, the listener will lose connection with what's previous. So just to play this in 80, which was for me also a little bit a discovery, because it felt like really slow. But then just try it, and suddenly you feel the contrast becomes so big between this and then. I, of course, exaggerate now, but those are the possibilities you get suddenly in this tempo. You don't have to rush, you don't have to take down on your tempo either, which is what many modern performers do. They start really fast, and then suddenly when this theme comes, they want to sound a little bit more musical, and what typically they do is slowing down. I'm not saying that all of them do that, but yeah, that's a normal thing, it's a natural thing to do, because here you have someone expressing a certain emotion. If you speak in terms of this being an opera, which many of Beethoven's big works are thought from the opera perspective, just having a voice perform or say something or express something in a certain mood or certain character. Here it's of course very, very, very sad. And so typically what you see is that performers then hit the brakes because they want to be musical, they want to be expressive, and naturally they feel that there is only one way to do is just slow down a little bit. And you will see that in many, many, many pieces, that suddenly there is a big tempo shift. But yeah, you don't need that here. It's just so I play this with a lot of emphasis on the 8th note, not like so you see, I'm holding, the proportions and the balance is not right. It's not really spot on. That's the reason why I'm sharing this process of practice, and it's a practicing session. So finding the right balance is something that takes time, but it's in the range of this. I mean, in this tempo, you can and you have to give a lot of accents. And on the left hand, listen to the repeated notes in the thumb. Okay, that's one thing. Tom, tom, rom, pom, and then the bass. So this. It's like an orchestra where the strings players are just giving enough accentuation to let the audience feel the time, so the tempo or the bar, actually heavy beats and the slow beat and the light beats, but in between they're giving this slight accent on the bass, but also here tom, ram, so counter accent. And then you have the middle voices in the left hand, which are really difficult to not articulate, but to have them played in a way that, well, they sound significant and are not disturbing the rhythm. I hope I explain myself clear. So that's not the case. That's da. I'm not happy with it. Beautiful how the left hand then accompanies the right hand, so the exclamatio. And you can anticipate that on the left hand. all these microscopic small elements of expression become just possible. But it makes it really hard. So if someone says to you, playing in double beat is really easy, it's not, because you have to work on those details. And that's actually what the music requires you. And I promise you, if you do that, you will certainly see, oh my God, there is a slur. The composer indicated like that. And things will fall in place in a way you cannot imagine if you've not tried it for weeks. And certainly for the slow movements, those are eye-openers then. Just take your metronome, play it in double beat, and suddenly you see that the notations start to make sense, and all the details are there. Again, certainly for the slow movements, they are more elaborated in this field of articulation and you know, the expression. But here it's so nice to do this in this tempo. Da 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 dum pum ba da da dum. So not exaggerating, but see it big. Those are big emotions. In that time, people had big emotions. They were crying when music was played. So again, the left hand will guide you in your tempo, but the right hand should be expressive beyond any imagination, I think. Suddenly there is still again this brillante spiel. So, and Czerny actually omits or leaves out some dots which are originally there. Actually, it's a Simrock edition. I think it's a mistake from the editor because he puts them right in at the end. So, but Beethoven wants to have this note as a kind of shock. Now it sounds, to me at least, suddenly as if you had this very strong, sad song, so to say, of that opera voice. Whatever he or she in this case had to sing. But it comes to an end and it feels like you need that break there because it became too emotional, and that break gives a kind of comment to what the singer was actually expressing. And when you then articulate it in a sharp way, I don't know if that's really meant, but I like it for now, then also this modulation becomes strong. Clean of those really sad G minor feelings, and we go to G major, and that is unbelievable, the contrast you have then after from this very sad that and here you get this again. It's so much opera-like. You get this so gentle, nice duet between the upper voice and the soprano, so to say, and the tenor. I mean, just the upper voice and the not the middle voice, but it's the tenor voice. So all that needs to be very clear. Beethoven indicates these notes, end of bow, end of bow. So the end of the bow means always an articulation gap and a new accent, which is kind of, I touched something, which is kind of sometimes strange because we are used to have these melodies going on legato forever. We are still somehow thinking in this post-Wagner style where you have this endless melodies, and that's not what they wanted in that time. And also for me, I mean, that's sometimes strange. I said to myself, I want to play this note legato to the next bar, but if Beethoven indicates it with the bow, you actually need to articulate, and that's sometimes hard. Here it works great because you emphasize the high note and you come down, but you can do the same in the left hand. Okay, and then with the eighth notes in between, it should sound really as if those notes were not there. I mean, in an orchestra, of course, you can make those distinctions much easier. We have to do it on the piano all by ourselves. We are actually always imitating a kind of orchestra. So that's our job, which is hard on a piano like this. I mean, how joyful is this again by repeating the beginning to it takes that again. So this is so unbelievable nice, this place, and it gives so much. The color blue is everywhere if I play that. I don't know why, but it feels like that. It's so much sunshine, and after suddenly we have here, it's just an exclamation from joy. He goes farther, 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 farther. And this lands so beautiful. It's like reaching the hand to the other dancer, other singer. You can see the opera scene just right in front of you. It's just gently giving the opportunity to the other singer or dancer to start his or her, in this case, his counter song. Question mark. And now, accent, 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 4 times. This is brilliant, and it's so hard because you have to give the accent actually on the counter. It's on the syncopation, I think. Beethoven indicates the upper notes with the strich, which is a stroke, which means, yeah, we talked about that, accentuated and staccato or just staccato. I mean, it doesn't matter here. It's forte. It's obvious what he meant. It's short, but the left hand, and that's interesting, and now shows why these scores of Czerny are so important. Those have fingerings, as many other notes. but it's clearly wanted by Czerny to make these notes as long as possible. It doesn't use finger substitutions, by the way, very, very little. But here, in my mind, it seems as Beethoven, by the interpretation of Czerny here, wants to trick the listener and fool the listener, so to say, by giving 4 bars, actually accents on the wrong parts of the bar, and by the end he falls back in the rhythm. That's the so that's great, but you have to be able to maintain that rhythm until the 5th bar. So let's try it again. Also here, make a little pause, because we expect that D sharp, because we know it, we have heard the piece like 1,000 times. But as a player, you have the power actually to trick all the brains of the people who are listening, just by giving that note a little too late. I mean, it's not too late, it's just in time, but in time it's a little bit too late. And what happens then is you expect that note, it doesn't come, and then it comes. And then you say, oh my God, what a strange note. So every time, even if you have listened to that piece for 1,000,000 times, you should be surprised hearing that D sharp. Imagine in that time, nobody has heard this piece before. What a total shock this was. This was kind of, I mean, brilliant. Found for Beethoven. This is brilliant passage. I mean, the whole sonata is brilliant. I think that's pretty clear what I think about the sonata. But this D sharp needs to be timed so right that your heart should be filled by joy and surprise. And it sounds silly when I say your heart or your soul, your heart. I mean, we listen today, I think, because partly these high tempi, much with our brains, we cognitively notice there is music, but it's very rare, at least with me, and I think with a lot of people, that your heart is just opened. Music should penetrate your heart first, and actually not even you shouldn't be thinking actually when you play or when you listen to music. And these are such places where this can happen suddenly. And then the coda is really hard with the trills. I tend not to play at the trills too fast, I think, and I'm working on this, but diving into the matter of trills in that time, I really think they were much slower than we today play. Not saying this is not related to tempo. I mean, in any kind of tempo you want to play this piece, but I think in those days, trills, you see, for instance, if you listen to Glenn Gould's trills, not to say that he is a historically informed player, but I should make some videos on him because I have some ideas. Some things are remarkable in his playing, but his trills are sometimes very mechanical, and people, we don't tend not to like that, but actually many of those scores have written out the trills in the 19th century. They are actually written out in the way he plays them. So rhythmically played trills, I think that's something in that time that's possible. But these are tricky because it's 2 hands. And I do something different than Czerny here. Czerny writes, start with second finger, for instance, on the C. So second finger here, second finger here. He starts with both second fingers. And then he goes for 3, 2. And the left hand he goes 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. But something that I've actually learned in Amsterdam from Jacques van Nootmessen, my organ teacher, and which works really well, is that if you have the possibility to, in a way, if you have passages in 2 hands, or certainly trills, and you have the possibility to kind of mirror the fingerings, left and right, it works better. And I do that here. So I start on 3, and then I use 2, 3 for both hands. pianissimo, piano. Beethoven was really serious in his indications. So piano, pianissimo, forte. Forte is not fortissimo. When Czerny played for the first time, or one of the first times after a while for him, he played all the Beethoven sonatas and works actually by heart, which astonished Beethoven. He actually played the Waldstein, so Beethoven gave him the score and he played it just sight reading, which says something, I think, about the tempo, unless Czerny was really a Kryptonian, which I don't think he was. But as a side remark, Beethoven's concern to Czerny's father was that's okay. He was surprised because it was not the practice of the day, but be careful and make sure that the young boy remembers all notes that I've made, all these small nuances. He was really serious about it. So piano, pianissimo. So try to mirror your fingering here, I think. And if it's hard, and it is hard, if you played the previous section and you start playing those trills unprepared, you will see that sometimes you miss in the left hand or the right hand. They will not be equal, but you can build in a little safety net here by just making the first note of the trill a little bit longer. Forte. This is of course much more difficult because you have these black keys. And then also heavily accentuated, of course. That's, I think, it gives so much power to the music. Okay, so there is so much to say about this piece that I think, let me not give my secret code of my cell phone here, that I think the rest will be for next week. I hope this was already, well, helpful is maybe not the word, but give something to think about. And as always during these live sessions, I am talking to you and partly to myself, which is sounds weird, but by doing this, that also I discover things that I wouldn't otherwise, maybe not consciously have noticed. So that's great. I learned a lot from these. Okay, let me check the chat here. If you're not too shocked by this tempo. So John is here. Just say hello again. Why bother with 30-second rest where staccato would suffice? Yeah, that's also one of these. I don't know which piece you're talking about. It is one of the great remarks. I mean, sometimes you see in played very fast pieces that composers actually divide the note in two instead of writing 16 notes with the staccato mark, actually making them even shorter, which in a very fast tempo doesn't make any sense. But yeah, that's okay. John, I used the same method Wim learned. That's great, but you were not a student of Jacques van Nootmessen, were you? It would have been great to meet you in Amsterdam, by the way. Miriam says, thank you for saying that, Wim, but I don't know what you mean by that. So anyway, you're welcome. Jerry says Gold could play it more slowly too. He was a great player anyway, but when he played slow, he was unbeatable. The beginning of the Goldberg variations, I like both versions. So it's 1955, I think, version, which is unbelievable. I mean, yeah, I'm not one of those persons who say, well, that's too fast, that's this, that's that, finger points to everyone. That performance is just perfect in itself. It's maybe as far from Bach as you can imagine, but who are we to tell? And that's, but in the second version, he used the great the beginning aria. The tempo he used for that is exactly Czerny double beat. He, of course, did not follow that throughout the piece, but sometimes with gold you have this, that like his Appassionata as well, that's exactly Czerny's double beat. So he must have looked into that. And if you see, it's been a while since I looked at his work in his interview, but a few years ago I was really into his work, and these interviews he gave at the end of his life where he said, well, basically we were playing everything too fast, and then he came to a certain tempo like the rondo alla turca of Mozart, which he gave exactly in double beat modulus. I mean, how it's weird and beautiful. He has also a Beethoven bagatelle. Is it the opus 126 of 119? I don't know. E flat major, I think. It's on YouTube. That's even slower than double beat, but it's so beautiful. There's a tension in this playing. Yeah. Okay, let's not talk about gold because we will be here for the next hour. It's a pity I cannot share things from his recordings because his company is, or his, I mean, YouTube is forced to block everything you do on Glenn Gould. Beethoven's birthday today, Ken. I'm really bad in birthdays because I missed Bach's even. I thought Beethoven died the 26th of March, isn't it? He was born somewhere in January or in December. Oh, I'm so bad. And I should make it a list and just do something on those dates. The temple opportunity, I've learned, is that, but yeah. Okay, Miriam, like this tempo. Okay, the chat is jumping back and forth. Just scrolling through your questions. Theoretically Musical just pulled out my old manuscript book and realized how little I knew about music theory. My fugue was in sonata form. Okay. If you have written a fugue, that's already great. It's so difficult to write good fugues. Finor Band talk about the conflict between the compass 33 and 39. I don't know exactly what you mean by that. So if you clarify that, I'm happy to say something if I know something about this. And there goes my chat again. My phone's pin code, yeah, should not do that on a live stream, but the stupid thing actually always blocks itself after just, I mean, I have to give the pin code every time, and then it says as a program that it unlocks itself when it's here, but it doesn't do that. I mean, and then I ask Sophie, and if Sophie doesn't know what I have to do, then I give up because she knows everything about phones. And you start to feel old when the newer generation is doing things that you are actually supposed to figure out yourself, but that weird feeling only lasted only 1 week with me because I saw all the advantages of having 2 young children dealing with all that stuff that I don't have to figure out anymore. So how cool is that? So in a few years, all my technical problems will be over because Sophie and then Evelyn will say, oh, Daddy, this is so simple. And I will accept their smile saying, you know, oh, you're becoming old. But in the meantime, they will figure it out how it works. And I will be happy to undergo their smiles. Okay. I really need to take more care in how I write my thoughts down. It's all okay. Yeah. Compasses measure. What's then meant by 33 and 36? I don't know. Yeah, Beethoven died March 26th, 1745. Thank you, Miriam, for sharing that. If I read Beethoven biographies, it's of course sad to see someone like him die, but it's still 56 years. If I read Mozart biography, always sad at the end. I mean, just fly back in time, giving 6 antibiotic pills, and we would have maybe duets by Beethoven and Mozart. Yeah. Oh, my pin code was Beethoven's birthday. That would be cool, actually. No, it's not. I should be more inventive in numbers like it. Sure. Okay. So guys, I hope you had a nice time here in the chat, and maybe some little things that I've shared with you. On Thursday, I will have pre-recorded the session. I'll have to do that. I will do that tomorrow's practicing session. I don't know what I'm going to do. So the Thursday sessions will be also at 7:30 p.m. here, Brussels time, unless it's really inconvenient for some of you, and you will notify me. So but the Thursday sessions will be as a premiere for now. Maybe sometimes live, but it's kind of cool also to pre-record those sessions, and you still have the chat options open, and I can make some practicing session that lasts a little bit longer than just a normal video. But I don't know what I'm going to do there on Thursday. I have some books to the pieces here for a long time, waiting for that I played. Let me not say how many years ago, but a long time ago. And I really would like to record those once on my clavichord, but I don't have time to practice those. Again, they're not easy pieces, so I would maybe do those. We'll see. I have to make a lot of fingerings for Beethoven variations, but yeah, we'll see what I do. Next week, Monday, probably we are still here, and then I will do a live session with the second part of this. If that's not the case, because next week we are driving to Lorenz Gradient in Ingolstadt, and we had some schedule problems where I had to leave certain days that we were there. Maybe we'll go on Monday, and then have Tuesday, Wednesday, and parts of Thursday to discuss this new book, because that's what we are going to discuss, to make a rough layout of the chapters, the main chapters that need to be in there. So there's a lot of preparation for that, but that's actually cool. And if you have questions for Lorenz, leave them somewhere so I can find them. I will take them with me, and we may make some videos, or I will address them later in some videos. So if I'm not here on Monday, there will be a pre-recorded session at the Frenzel, and if I'm here, we just do a live stream. And then Thursday, okay, that's for that. I was saying something else, or I was about to say something else. So now thank you for watching here, for being here. And also, as always, thank my Patreons. Shouldn't forget that they are the backbones of what we do. And if you have time to check the Patreon page out and maybe just throw in $1 a month, makes a huge difference. It really does, because it is making a difference. So, okay, guys, have a nice day, evening, morning, midday, depending on the place on this planet where you live, and I hope to see you soon again. Bye.